So you're planning to get into motorcycles, huh? So if you ask yourself these 5 simple questions, you can truly begin your journey to becoming a motorcycle rider. Hey guys, it's Mel, your apparel and gear expert here in New York City. Now, before we go on, I'm gonna please ask you to please like and subscribe. It really helps my channel out. So what are these questions that I usually ask my customers when they tell me they want to get into motorcycle riding? Well, actually, I usually start with a statement. We all have an image in our head of how we want to look when we pull up to dinner to meet our friends who told us not to get a motorcycle. It really does start with a look we have in our minds. It begins to lead us to asking questions. Here are 5 questions that I find immensely helpful. Number 1, why do you want to get a motorcycle? Number 2, what kind of motorcycle do you see yourself on? Number 3, what kind of riding do you plan to do? Number 4, where do you live? And what kind of riding do you plan to do? And number 5, how soon do you plan to start riding? Now this is more in regards to apparel, but you can still use it for this when getting a motorcycle. Now with these 5 questions, you should be able to give yourself a good starting point as you begin your journey to finding a motorcycle and seeing what this lifestyle is all about. Yeah, with these 5 simple questions, I found that it not only helps with finding the right motorcycle for you, but in my position, in what I do, it really helps me with my clients in terms of finding the right gear for you. Now, I'm no expert. Oh wait, I am. So let's go over these questions. For now, I'm going to start off with asking these questions, but this will be more in regards to choosing the right motorcycle for you. So I know I've been talking a lot about how will I look? What do you see in your mind when you're riding a motorcycle? Yeah, I know it sounds silly, but it gives me a good insight in terms of what you're looking for. So let's start with the first question. And remember, this is in regards to choosing a motorcycle. Why do you want a motorcycle? So I usually ask this, honestly, to kind of gauge where people's minds are at that time. By doing this, it kind of gives me an idea of how serious they are looking to getting into motorcycling. Sometimes it's for style, sometimes it's just for fun, but regardless, it just gives me a good starting point to really delve into the mind of this new rider. Now, the usual answers I get are pretty general. Well, I just need a way of getting out of the city. And I just wanted something different to take my significant other on. Or like me, I hate the trains. I'd rather ride a motorcycle to work. And by getting this type of information, it kind of helps me realize like what kind of style they're looking for, both in motorcycle and in gear. Second question, what kind of motorcycle do you see yourself on? So I usually ask this question because it gives me an idea of like what kind of style they're looking for. Are they looking to get like some sort of super bike, where they're crouched down and, racing through the city or the track? Or do they want something more casual? And honestly, what I've personally noticed, a lot of new riders, including myself, go for that cafe racer kind of look. Go figure. So once I know this, I can tell them which direction to go in terms of motorcycles. Is it going to be a Ducati, like Super Sport? Is it going to be a Triumph T100 or T120? Or is it going to be some custom cafe racer? So once they kind of tell me what kind of motorcycle they see themselves on, I'll direct them to the type of motorcycle that I think is right for them. Now, whether that be like a Scrambler from Ducati, whether it be like a Triumph Street Twin or T100, or whether it be like a BMW. This question helps me out immensely. Third question, what kind of riding do you plan to do? Is this just for fun? Is it for getting to work? Is it going to be just your main mode of transportation? Or is it all of the above? This question, it kind of brings focus to like what types of motorcycles they should be looking at. Now, of course, if you're a brand new rider, I'm not going to suggest that you get like a Panigale V4 or a Triumph Thruxton. But the cool thing is nowadays, a lot of these newer bikes, like for example, the new Monster by Ducati, has different riding modes and power modes. That way you can just essentially dumb it down until you're ready to just kind of fly. Then you just make a flip of a switch. Fourth question, where do you live and what kind of riding do you plan to do? So me asking, at least here in New York City, where do you live basically gives me an idea of what type of routes you'll be taking. Is it mostly city streets or is it mostly highway? That kind of affects what type of motorcycle you should be considering. And the second part of the question of what type of riding you plan to do is more to see like, do you plan to go out into the countryside? Or do you just plan on hitting the grind in the urban city? And finally, the fifth question. How soon do you plan to start riding? Now, to be honest with you, this question is more in regards to like riding gear. You know, sometimes you'll go to a dealership and you can purchase the bike now, but if you're in a place like New York City and it's winter, sometimes the dealership will offer like winter storage. So then the first ride you'll be taking will be more towards spring. But this question is very important to me in terms of like riding gear, because I don't want to sell someone a winter jacket when they plan to start riding in spring, because they will just be sweating and cursing me out in their heads. So by asking yourself these 5 questions, it will help you find the right motorcycle for your needs, regardless if you're a brand new rider or experienced one. And these 5 questions are a great lead up to tell any salesman who is helping you find the right motorcycle. You don't want to just get a motorcycle for the sake of the look or the picture you had in your mind, because let's say you pick like a super bike where you're living in a place like New York City where you're not even opening it up, and if you're older like me, your back won't like it, and then you're not going to enjoy your first experience with a motorcycle. Now, these initial questions can definitely be used when helping you find the right motorcycle, but they can also be used when you're looking for the right gear. So now let's circle back to using these questions in regards to riding gear. So again, question number 1, why do you want to get a motorcycle? So by asking this question, it helps me identify, at least for here in New York City, are they riding in city streets like New York City? Like, is it Manhattan? Is it Queens? Is it Brooklyn? Is it Staten Island? Is it the Bronx? Or do they live across the river in Jersey? Actually, that's New Jersey. So simply putting it, it helps tell me if they're riding on local roads or on highway. That way I'm not pushing them, for example, to get full leather gear, which would not necessarily be good if they're stuck in traffic here in New York City, where they're not building up enough speed and they're just sweating. Full leathers are great, especially if you're on an open road like mostly highway. But if you're wearing full leathers, especially in the summertime here in New York City, you're just gonna be sweating. I'm sorry. So if someone told me they're riding mostly local, urban here, let's say, for example, in Manhattan, then I would probably push them more towards like a textile jacket. Still great protection, but better airflow. Second question, what kind of motorcycle do you see yourself on? It kind of tells me which direction to go in terms of style. That way, for example, if someone is getting a cafe racer, I'm not going to try to sell them like an AGV Pista, which was truly made for the track and doesn't match that retro look. And honestly, it's a bit of an overkill for someone who's just riding here in the city. I would point them more towards like a Bell Bullet or even an Arai Region X. And that's just strictly for helmets. That way they're still retaining that image in their head of how they want to look when they pull up to dinner to meet their friends who told them not to get a motorcycle. But if they were getting like a Panigale V4, which I don't suggest as a brand new rider, I'd get them more like race appropriate looking gear, like Alpine Stars racing gear, Dainese racing gear, or even Ducati branded Dainese racing gear. Question number 3. What kind of riding do you plan to do? Is it for fun? Is it for work? Is it your main mode of transportation? Or is it all above? By asking this question, it helps me figure out like which is the best helmet for them, which is the best jacket for them, which are the best gloves for them, which are the best pants for them, and which are the best boots for them. So let's just say, for example, you're getting a motorcycle cafe racer style here in New York City, and you plan to ride from home to work every day. Well, I mean, 5 days a week at least. So what I would do is this. Knowing they're riding in New York City and plan to ride year round, and knowing that here in the city, because of traffic, a lot of stop and go, I would know they'll probably get hot. So starting from the head and working our way down, I would probably show the customer an Arai helmet because it has great airflow. And because of the round shape, it still has that retro kind of look. And then for like jackets, if they were the type of person that gets really hot, I would show them like a Revit Eclipse jacket or an Alpine Star Luke Air V2. Both very similar jackets, both textile and with amazing airflow. If they wanted something a little bit more dressed up, honestly, I would say the Roland Sands Ronin jacket. Either the fully perforated or the partially perforated, like over here and here. And then for pants, most likely a great pair of speedy riding jeans. They look like regular jeans, but they offer great protection and have adjustable knee armor. I'm doing this because I'm rubbing my knees right now. I know, that's weird. For gloves, I'd say the Alpine Stars Mustang gloves. Perforated, of course. And then for boots, how about the TCX Blend 2 boots? They look retro, they look cool, and they're waterproof. Fourth question, where do you live? And what kind of riding do you plan to do? So as I stated earlier, by identifying where in the city you live or wherever you live, it helps me give an idea, especially for the new rider, what is a great starting selection of riding gear for them to pick. And it's the same thing again. If someone is riding more on local roads, I'm not going to try to push them to get all this hardcore leather armor, leather gear, leather jacket, leather everything. Although it's great protection, I want them to feel comfortable so they can focus on the motorcycle riding they are doing. But if you happen to be riding mostly on highway, then of course I'm going to push for leather, because leather does offer better protection. And finally, question number 5. How soon do you plan to start on riding? If you tell me you're planning on riding when it's cold, then I'm gonna make sure your first gear is winter gear. But if you tell me you're planning to start when it's hot, then I'm gonna gear you up with summer gear. I think the worst thing you can do is pick your first gear that is not appropriate for the season you will be first riding in, and then you just end up feeling uncomfortable, making your first experience with your motorcycle a horrible one. So there you have it. By knowing the answers to these 5 simple questions, you're gonna have a great starting point on your motorcycle journey. Whether if it's helping you find the first motorcycle, or if it's helping you find your first gear. I have found that these 5 questions help you with your first steps. So what about you? What other questions that I haven't mentioned do you ask yourself or others around you? Let me know in the comments below. Well, that's it for now. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And here I go pointing because I don't know where I'll place the thingies. Maybe I'll put one here and I'll put one here. And in addition, if you like this video, please don't forget to check out my other videos, which should be popping up around here. And thanks again for watching Cafe Racer New York City. See ya.